Oh, why did I stop recording? You know, it happens every time.
Yes. And I just feel like it's like the before exchange is so amazing. And then sometimes you get people on and you're like, wait, who are you now? Like, where was the person I was talking to 5 minutes before? So I
Yep.
know you're not like that, though. It's so nice to actually have you on with me because number one, you do this all the time. So you have the equipment, you have everything set up. Um, the issue that I've been having with people is that like this mic is so amazing with sound that if they don't have something equally as good or better, it just feels weird to listen to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's one of the advantages of working with and bringing podcasters onto your podcast because they have the they have the gear.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and I mean, there are some editing techniques that the wizards at my company can do to kind of enhance things, but yeah, no, I'm totally with you. Definitely, we're in like all this didn't happen by accident. Your background looks beautiful, by the way. I'm loving that purple backdrop. That's dope. I love that. I
I
think
simplified it. I was trying to be fancy, right? I had like plants and then we were going to do shelves and I was like just get me just 2 bar lights and I can change the lighting depending on how I feel.
that is an underrated way to do your background. Underrated because as soon as you start adding items, then you get shade in places you don't. You get shadows in places you don't want shadows, and you're like, oh, this doesn't look quite right. And it's much easier just to have a clean blank backdrop. That's what Alex Sanfilippo does over at Podmatch.
Oh, I love it.
His
All
and
right.
his background looks great. Your background looks great. It's like you're doing something right.
So I'm just making sure we're live on Facebook. We are. Are we live on Twitch? Who knows? Sorry. I'm doing all the things. So this is my everybody who's joining us, FYI. If you want on Instagram, if you want to actually see Mark, you can go over to my YouTube. You should know by now. I've been doing these every day. Mark Savant, full disclosure, besides being a podcast guru, was my podcast mentor for a while. We met, I think it was 2021 when Clubhouse was all the rage. Do you remember Clubhouse?
I miss those days. That was fun. I mean,
I
I
miss those
don't
days
miss
too.
I don't miss everyone being locked in their homes and not being able to open up their restaurants and their business. I don't miss that, but I do miss just everyone was on Clubhouse just jamming. It was cool.
It was amazing. And you always showed up. You showed up consistently and you gave so much value every time. And when you open your mastermind, I was like, I have to do this. I have to get to know this guy because I have a background in TV, I have a background in radio. I had been podcasting, but I hadn't figured out how to monetize it. I hadn't created a system. And so just talking with you, going to your masterminds, I learned so much and you give so much. But you didn't start out with podcasts. You started out in insurance.
I did. I mean, I started when I graduated from college. I got into insurance, hated it, and about 5 years into that, I started experimenting with all sorts of different businesses. I even remember I went to a conference for children's book writers and illustrators, and I was the only guy there. It was all old ladies who were writing these books and whatnot.
That's my
But I was,
future.
yeah,
Children's
I,
books.
I was into it. I mean, I have two young kids, and I like art, and I like doing that sort of thing. But the money wasn't there, and I knew I wanted to make more money, and so I eventually landed on podcasting. One thing I will say though about Clubhouse is that was kind of a big break for me, and it's dead. It's basically dead now. I mean, it's not dead, but you're not going to get the breaks that you were back in 2021.
Mhm.
2020, 2021. I mean, everyone was there. I was getting connected with people and talking with people I just didn't have business talking with. Because they were popping in our rooms. We were getting 100, 200, 300 people in a room at a time. And I think back to that because I'm like, man, I wish that was still around because that was such a lucky break. That was such a great opportunity, but it strikes me that if you're staying active and if you're trying new things and innovating, there's always going to be a new thing around the corner, and I think getting married or too caught up in what worked in the past can really deflate and hinder us from achieving what's possible in the future. And there's so many new opportunities out now that it just seems like a gold rush for small business, and it's I don't know, an exciting time in a lot of ways, I think.
I hope so. I think what Clubhouse was, it got a lot of diverse people into the right rooms together who would have never been in those rooms together. And so it really makes me understand now how important networking is and putting myself out there. I've had a hard time doing that, but I met an amazing group of women and entrepreneurs, and it's getting easier and easier to sort of say like, hey, this is what I do. Um, when you flip from insurance to literally doing what you do full time, which is help businesses with content, you do podcasts, but you also do sort of what I do, right? You'll go to their businesses and take video for them if they need reels or set up their podcast studios. Correct? Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, I do some of that also. My bread and butter with my marketing agency is helping business owners turn their 20 to 30-minute Zoom calls into their entire digital media presence, from email to blog to Instagram to TikTok to LinkedIn to YouTube to iTunes. That's our bread and butter, is making it so it's very easy for you as the business owner to just sit down in front of your camera, record, and turn that into your entire digital media presence. And it's incredibly powerful when you're getting on the call, when you're inviting guests on that are the right fit based on the goals that you have for your program.
So, two things that I've learned from you that I am implementing finally. It's only taken me, forever, but baby steps for me. I don't know why. It's the visual I get is, when you take your kids to the ocean, to the beach, and it's like they run for the wave and then the wave comes after them and then they run away from the wave. Like that's how I've been for the last 3 years. And I think it's been just trying to get clarity on like what I want to offer, because I don't want to grow something and then be like, oh crap, this isn't really what I have passion to do. Or I didn't have clarity on how I wanted to do this or the systems I wanted to set up. So have I been taking my time? Yes, absolutely. I've been taking my time, but I think that finally now I'm ready to sort of like jump into the ocean and pull that trigger. Two of the big things that you've talked about, and you guys like go to his website and go to your YouTube channel. Incredible. You give so much value. You give it away for free. It's absolutely amazing. And like side note, ADHD side note on that, that is why I contacted you, because you sent out one of your newsletters and it was what, like over 700,000 downloads, over 400 videos, 4 years of doing this. And me just starting out, showing up in long form now, because I've been in short form forever. And I'm just like, I want to double down on long form and YouTube and live streaming. And to see that, I was like, wow, like, okay, yeah, I'm sure day one wasn't easy, but look at where you are now. We have to start somewhere. And so I did what I do a lot of times when I sort of get imposter syndrome when I'm looking at people's channels. I go to their oldest video. Have you ever watched, like, when's the last time you watched your first video you posted? Do you even know?
It's been a little while, but yeah, I remember the videos. I remember the video.
But it made me feel so good because it's like you weren't perfect, right? But you showed up for yourself. And that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm doing a live video a day in May because I was like, I've got to do something and I have to show up for myself. And I have so much content, but I am so engrossed in what my clients need that I'm not getting my stuff edited.
Yeah.
And so circling back in my ADHD way, two of the things I'm doing that you suggest is I'm outsourcing editing. So I hired somebody from the Philippines finally for my stuff, for my own stuff, which is like, oh my God, I have to invest in myself, which, as a business owner, like sometimes, I had to call my husband the other day and be like, hey, we have to go into savings to make payroll. It is what it is. Does that make sense? Like sometimes it's just the reality of what we're in. Right. And then other times it's great and there's no issues. So hiring and outsourcing some of at least my personal edits to the Philippines, I'm hoping is going to be the thing to sort of push me forward in getting out more content. We're just starting that process. And then the second thing is automating with AI, which you preach over and over again. Create a system, automate with AI. Create a system, automate with AI. And so I'm starting that process now.
100%. I'm actually playing with something. It's not perfected yet. I'm sure I'll be doing a walkthrough tutorial on YouTube. But one of the things I've started playing with is the onboarding process of new team members, because finding someone in the Philippines or in India or in Serbia or South Africa or wherever in the world, it can be a laborious project, right? You put out a job. I'll put out a job listing. I'll get 100 people that want to take that position. It's like, oh my goodness, I'm overwhelmed. So what I'm set up is an AI rating model. So I'll ask a number. As soon as someone applies, to say, hey, go ahead and fill out this form. And what I'm looking for is, is there attention to detail? Are you actually applying for what I'm looking for? Do you have experience? Did you fill out the questions correctly? If there's like a code word, did you put the code word in? Because I like to have a code, because that says that, hey, you're actually able to pay attention to detail, and so on and so forth. And then I send all that information over to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will actually write me out a summary of the person and give them a rating from 1 to 10 on how good of a fit they're going to be for my organization. So I'm starting to kind of play with that. And it's just one example of the things that you can do by using AI, and if you're programming it correctly.
I think that's fascinating. And are you putting them in individually? Like, do you have to
No.
input them individually, or are
Oh,
you
hell
putting
no.
Oh my
No.
god.
No.
You have to
So
show us how to do this in the future, because that's what I had. I literally woke up to 100 emails. I'm like, "Well, how am I supposed to I don't know. Like, who do I energetically work with best with? I don't know. Now I have to talk to each and every single one of you." Yeah, I was overwhelmed this morning, to put it lightly.
Well, I've been there. I've been there, and I probably will be there again. And that's what I think, when you find yourself overwhelmed with too much to do, that's the time when it's time to either outsource it to a human or to an AI. And um, one of the most powerful things that we can do with AI right now at this level is all around words and language, and ideas to an extent, brainstorming. Um, but your output is only as good as your input. And so what you can do, using programs like Zapier and ChatGPT, is you can have potential prospects, potential team members, potential clients, existing clients, even yourself, input answers into forms. Google Form is a great way to go. So I'll give you another example of something I did. This might be useful for all the producers out there. Is if I'm going to be going out to someone's shop to do an in-person recording, for example, I was recording with Drake Irish Dance the other day. And what I did was I had the business owner fill out a Google form with questions like, what's your mission statement? Tell me about you. Who do you serve? What does your business do? What's the history of the business? How long have you been? Various questions about the business itself, the stuff that they're going to want to put on the video. I use Zapier to send that over to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT automatically is going to take all that data in. I've already programmed ChatGPT with the correct prompts and whatnot. This is all up on my YouTube channel too. By the way, this is a whole process. And then on the back end, what it'll do is it gives, after ChatGPT has read the information from that Google form, will give me scripts for several different videos that the person can review and kind of get ready for. I know scripts are kind of one of those things, but it gives scripts. It'll give ideas for 100 different short videos. It'll give summaries. It can do SWOT analysis. It can do all kinds of cool stuff that typically you need to do physically with your brain, right? We've all had these consultations they'll go an hour and then you walk out with more questions and answers. Well, what if before you even got on the call or got into the meeting, ChatGPT has already done all the prep work for you. It's already done all the strategic analysis. And so you just kind of go in and review the answers. Huge time saver. Like what would have normally been probably a 2-hour recording was about 25 minutes, because she already knew what she was going to say.
I love that, except as like a TV producer, our whole thing is pre-interviews, right? Like that's how I get to the heart of stuff. So how I sort of do it in my own way is I still do the pre-interview, but I like the idea of doing the intake form with questions so that I have more meat when I'm going into the pre-interview. Does that make sense? Where we're doing it, I call it brainstorming, but in TV and like radio, we call it pre-interviews. And then I put the answers into ChatGPT, because a lot of times just that one-on-one interaction, there's certain things that light up for me just as a content producer that I know like, oh, that's really good. That maybe, an AI may not be able to pick up on. But I do love then taking all of that and putting it into the system and then having AI give me the ideas for hooks and for like hundreds of different types of content that we can do. I just tell everybody that I help people tell their stories. And so I like that one-on-one interaction and that brainstorm still. But I do like the idea of automating the intake and having the meet before I do that interview. So I like that. Thank you for that.
Well, just that concept of using Google Forms, and then you can figure out where that fits into your personal workflow. I just found that, what I do, and I, reverse engineer it, start from the end. Like
Mhm.
if I'm, doing something, if I'm recording something, like where are the places in that process that I get held up? If I have to review 100 applications for potential team members, that's an entire day wasted,
Mhm.
not necessarily wasted, but it's an entire day. So how can I use AI to try to screen the bottom 70%, screen them out? So I'm just focusing on 30 or 25 out of the 100. Let ChatGPT do it. It's not going to be perfect,
Mhm.
but it's a good start. It's a good start. And the same thing with the video, I mean, I also think it depends on where your price is at and
Mhm.
concierge service is at, but it's just such a powerful tool for replicating what's in our brains. The
Mhm.
next evolution of this video consultation thing is, um, I don't even need to be there when the recording happens. ChatGPT's done all the recording. So it's, finding ways to scale what we do, I think is really important, because it just allows us to offer more at our price point. I'll give you another example of this, Rachel. I was hiring for a position at my agency recently, and I was doing an interview with someone who looked interesting. And one of the first questions I asked was, "Well, how are you using AI for editing and production?" He said, "Well, I'm not. I don't really like AI. It's not creative. It's not real art. All that kind of typical stuff." I was like, "Okay, well." In my brain, when he said that, I knew for sure I couldn't hire him, because what it would take him 4 to 5 to 10 times as long to do something that someone else could do, like in 10 minutes. And so, like, if let's say I'm paying $15 an hour for a job role, well, I can pay this guy $50 an hour and he'll get 3 projects done. I'll pay you $15 an hour and you won't even get 1 project done. So you just can't be competitive without using these tools to become more effective. So
I totally agree. I wouldn't say I'm like kicking and screaming going into using it. I'm just getting my feet wet and trying to figure out how I can make it work for me. Does that make sense? Because you don't know until you start doing it.
right.
That was the same thing with the live streaming. It's like I don't know until I start doing it. And I was getting really, really frustrated that I couldn't get episodes out because I couldn't catch up with the edits. I mean, my edit list is insane right now. So like, yay, good on me that I have content until the end of the year. But at the same time, it's just as a creator, it gets really frustrating. And it's like, this is what I help my clients with. How do I take my own advice and make it work for me? And so I love everything that you had to say about creating systems and using AI and then also outsourcing stuff. I'm really excited for these next few months to see sort of how I can shake it out and create a system that really works for me. So
Love
I
it.
just
And I
love
think,
you so much and all the value you give. Like, I don't think you understand how important you are to people that are growing whether you're a content creator, a business owner, an entrepreneur, you give so much value. So I really do appreciate it.
thank you. Thank you. That means a lot. Don't forget to leave a comment if you're ever watching a YouTube video too, by the way. If you're watching a YouTube video from someone that you appreciate, leave a comment. It helps them reach hundreds of more people. So it's a big deal, to leave a comment. But Rachel, I think that's the best way, I think, to go about building a business. Maybe not for everyone, but it worked for me. Is I'll solve my own problems. People will recognize the problems that I'm solving, and then they're going to want me to solve that problem for them. And it's just a great way to grow your creative business.
That's so funny because ever since I started creating like this podcast studio space and creating a podcast, every pain point and every question I've ever asked, I've written down. So that is now my literally my content that we're going to
Love it.
start focusing on because it's like I had these questions, so other people naturally will have these questions, and if I now understand the process and I can answer them, at least tell you how I did it and the tools that I'm using, like, why not? So I've just for some reason had that idea right from the beginning. Well, if I'm googling it or it's a pain point for me, write it down. And
Yep.
so it's like, well, my content's already done. It's amazing. I love it so much. The next thing I want to talk to you about is being an entrepreneur and growing a business. It is not hard. I mean, no, it's not hard. It is hard. It is not easy to go from, hey, I'm selling insurance to having a side hustle, right? Because you didn't flip flop immediately to this business. Your whole podcast is After Hours Entrepreneur. right? Because it's like, hey, let's focus on our side hustle after work. We put our 9 to 5 in, which, it's not 9 to 5. And then you focus on your side hustle. Um, Talk to me about growing pains. I'm going through that right now. I'm going through growing pains. Hiring a lawyer, getting contracts settled, like doing all the things, hiring team members. Was it scary? Tell me how you sort of blew up this business and like truly give me like the real honest, like how hard was it for you? Because I'm just having such a hard time right now. And it's not like it's just hard time emotionally almost. Does that make sense? Where it's like
It's
I'm putting all my eggs in this basket and it may not
you can
work.
always get a new job. I was never worried about, well, what if this doesn't work? Like, I'm going to be able to get a new job. I'm not so much worried about that. But it is an emotional roller coaster that 99% of people don't understand when you're building a business. I find myself at a party or dinner party, and I'm like, I have nothing in common with these people, not because they're not nice people, but like if you don't know what it's like to take nothing and create something, it's hard to it's just hard to talk to people that have never created something from nothing. I'm looking at all you politicians out there, but that's another story. So I think that's part of it is it can feel kind of like you're isolated when you don't have people to talk to. And there's ups and downs because in the morning something great can happen, but by the evening something terrible has happened. And so it's this roller coaster. So I think part of it for me, Rachel, is a perspective that like things are going to work out if we do the work. If we continuously dedicate ourselves to being better and doing the work, like things are going to work out. There's going to be bad and there's going to be good. And trying not to get too high or too low has helped because you're going to get both.
Oh yeah, I was crying on Monday. Monday I was done. One day I told my husband, let me know when you can make enough money so I can just be a stay-at-home mom. I don't want to build a business. Like I'd rather, if I'm going to do something 24 hours a day, I'd rather be a wife and like a mom. I'm done. I don't want to do this. I'm done. I literally was just bawling my eyes out all day because I was just like, how nobody talks about how tough this is. And it doesn't get easier, right? Like you grow, payroll gets bigger. You need to get more clients, right? Like it's just a cycle that keeps going over and over again. And so during those hard times, what do you tell yourself? How do you keep going? Besides like, I have to pay bills.
Well, that's, again, that's one of the problem. That's one of the challenges with agency life. There's so many different types of business models out there. But, running a marketing agency focused on podcast and media production, you lose a client. It's like, oh, there goes part of my income. I lose 2 clients. That was my biggest client. And then, I just landed 3 new clients. Now I got to hire 2 more people. And it's kind of a difficult balance, but as we get larger, as we generate more income, the problems we solve become more challenging, right? Just like in sports, Little League is pretty easy. The next level is more difficult. Then I'm in JV, then I'm in varsity, then I'm D1, then I'm a pro. Like each level is it's more difficult to get to each level, right? But I think that at a certain point in the business, the edge, you can kind of take the edge off, the pressure comes off, right? When I first started my business, like anytime I signed up for a software, if it's like $25 a month, I had to write up like a real tough. I was like, man, can I afford this? Does this make sense? Am I going to get the value back? But now I've taken the edge off. So I'm like, $25, sure. Give it to my team members, let them play with it. $100 a month, let's test it for a quarter and see how it goes. So it definitely takes the edge off, because my basic needs are met. Like we're good financially. So I think that's a big part of it. But there's definitely grit that goes into it. But understanding how to do work, making sure that you have systems for getting new leads in your pipeline. You might not know exactly when that lead is coming or when that hot prospect is coming, but that like it's going to come. Like it's early May. I've got a few hot leads I'm working, but I know I just know based on the law of averages over the past several years that I'm probably going to write 2 new clients this month. I don't know where they're coming from, but they will come. So
is it a lot about mindset in your mind? Is it just we're going to take the next best step? Like, okay, so today was shitty. Tomorrow's a new day. We take the next best step.
Well, yes. I mean, just trying to focus on being a little bit better than you were yesterday is a big deal. And getting it, that's another practical thing. There are some nights where I'm just like, I'm not in it. I'm like, I'm just going to go to bed early. I'm going to go to bed early because sometimes just having a good night's sleep can reset that stress level. Um, Other
Yeah.
times it's like, okay, I'm stressed out, but I got to double down because I need to get this project done. But I think more often than not, just like getting a good night's sleep is underrated.
A
You know?
good night's sleep, and then I noticed, a meal. There's some times where I just don't eat, and I'm like, oh my god, of course, my blood sugar is low. Of course I'm
Yeah.
not happy right now. Like, I need
Or
to eat a
exercise.
meal.
Or
Yes,
exercise.
I've been trying to walk, I've been trying to ground, I've been trying to do all the things, and I think that's part of it too, is in the mornings, I was just getting up and starting to edit, right? And just starting to work and checking
Mhm.
emails, and I have to now get up a little bit earlier and just give myself that space for grace, basically is what I call it. Like, give yourself that space for grace so that you can have a moment to yourself before you get all the gears going.
Yeah.
And that's sort of been helping. It's just I had a moment, and I was talking to somebody else who was super honest with me and just said, "It's you're gonna have a lot of moments. Like, it's not gonna always be perfect, and things will happen, and you will have to adjust and pivot. Like, this is the thing you signed up for."
Yeah.
Along with, the trials and tribulations of growing pains, I wanted to ask you about balance because a lot of people, it's 24 hours a day for some of us, right? And I totally understand you want us all to get a system and get on the AI train to help us with that time.
Yes.
Um, you had said something. I was watching one of your videos earlier, and you mentioned something about like getting time back so you're not sitting there editing, so your wife's not looking at you all the time. But like, why are you editing or why you're on your phone? I go through that with my husband all the time. He'll say, "You're always on your phone." I'm like, "I'm editing. I edit from my phone." Like, I'll go on the treadmill and I'll have my phone. I'm editing on the treadmill, and so it's so hard to get my spouse to understand sometimes that like I have to utilize these hours, right? Like, how did you explain that to your wife as you started this business and you were growing? Like, what do we say to our spouses to keep them happy? I don't know what to do.
Well, there is definitely a lot there, and it's definitely a problem that I rolled into. I was a lifelong employee, so going from employee to employer added different stresses, that she wasn't quite ready for. Um, I think what worked for us, well, is a couple different things, but one of which is creating a vision, right? And saying, "Hey, well, what do you want in life? This is what I want in life. Where are we connected? Are the paths that we're on now going to get us there? The world is changing really quickly. Can we afford to be doing what we're doing now, or do we need to level up? Do we need, is it riskier to take the risk on building something new, or is it riskier to stay doing the same thing that we've been doing? But creating that vision was I think really important because when my wife laid out the things that she wants in life, I was like, well, we're going to need to take risks to get there. We're not we're not going to get there working a 9 to 5 with an out 1 hour lunch break. Well, I'm an after hours entrepreneur, so there's things that I need to be willing to do, to get ahead. So I think that's part of it is creating a vision
I love
for
that.
me.
And we've had that conversation because we have two businesses. He's in construction and I'm in media. And it's like, okay, well, sometimes they merge, sometimes we can cross promote. But also like what's the vision overall for both of us, our businesses and our family. And so yeah, we have that check-in and that come to Jesus meeting sometimes. It's just, when I'm on the phone, it's like, how else do you expect me to get stuff done?
Well, but
So
you
that's
also, I
been
think, need to have some sort of like there need to be sacred times because I get what you're saying, and we're so addicted to these phones, like it just if it's gonna beep at you all day. All day, and you're thinking like, oh, is that a new client? Is there a problem with this project, or is this a new lead, or let me check on the YouTube video, how are the analytics doing? It's all day. But there need to be times that you and your partner set aside to say, hey, when we're going on our evening walk, there's no phones. We're not doing phones during evening walk, and I don't know exactly what that looks like, but in this digital world, if we don't create, these sacred spaces where the phones don't exist, I think that puts an immense strain on a relationship. Like the other day, not to throw my wife on blast, but I was talking to her and she was typing on her phone. And I just stopped talking. And she's like, why'd you stop talking? I'm like, you're not paying attention to me. And she replied back like half of what I had said, but missed the other half. it's a very easy trap to fall into, because I think part of what made my wife and I just celebrated our 10-year anniversary, by the way. But
Congratulations.
I think part of what makes for long-lasting marriage, something that we all need as human beings, is the feeling of respect and that need to be heard. And if the phone is in between all those conversations, um, I don't think relationships can withstand that, because you end up feeling isolated. No one's listening to me. Let me go find someone who will listen to me. And
Mhm.
that's a path that leads to broken homes. So, not
Exactly.
saying that that's what's happening to you,
Yeah.
but that's something that I
No.
identified in my own personal marriage. And so we've had that talk. There's times where we don't do like we have a date night once a week. There are no phones on date night. It's just us. And I think that's an important part of keeping it going.
Do each of you take turns planning date night?
No, it's generally just me, to be honest. I'm kind of the
Really?
adventure. I'm the adventurer, and she's kind of the. But I mean, to be fair, we have two young kids, 4 and 7, so we're not like out on the town on date night. Date night is
Mhm.
typically hanging out around the table, watching a movie, playing a
Mhm.
board game.
I
Going
love
to
that you take that time for each other, though. I think that's super important.
must do.
Um, so what advice do you have for anybody starting from zero right now with content? Like, I want to be whatever. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business owner, I'm just starting right now with content. Where should I be? Is there a platform that I should be doubling down on? And how do I even start this process? What advice would you give to somebody?
Well, if you're just starting content, and I've learned this from tens of thousands of pieces of content over the last few years, we need to start with the end in mind. Like, what are we trying to achieve? Are we trying to build our network? Are we trying to build our personal brand? Are we trying to generate hot leads? Are we trying to generate a digital footprint? Like, what is the reason for doing this in the first place? Um, and once you've determined like why I want to do it, we need to identify like, well, what's the in most cases, you're trying to generate some sort of income. Okay. And so once you've identified like why I want to do it, then we need to discuss, well, how do I solve what problem do I solve? What am I doing? Like, what do I do? Am I editing videos? Am I doing consultations? Am I doing copywriting? Am I editing podcasts? Like, what is it that I actually do? Am I doing email marketing? And then we identify, well, who's the gatekeeper? Who's the decision maker? Who's the person or persons that say, okay, we're going to give our money to Rachel. We're going to give our money to Rachel because she solves the problem. Um, and once we've kind of figured all that, well, then we can just start to actually determine, well, what type of content do we want to make? Because we want to appeal to the decision maker. And by the way, I don't think content is a good way to sell something. It's a good way to turn a cold lead into a warm lead. It's a good way to turn someone that has no idea who you are into someone that's like, okay, maybe I'll listen to another video or I'll listen to another episode. So start with the end in mind, break down what problem you solve, who's the decision maker, and then start to make content that revolves around them. Not on every platform. Choose one, maybe two platforms to focus on, and that's how you get started.
I love that. That's what I tell everybody too. I love it because how else can people get to know, like, and trust you if you don't at least put some personality content out there, right? Like, it's not to sell. You're telling a story so people understand your why. People buy why you're doing something. They don't buy what you're doing or what you're selling. And so how else
Sure.
can you tell your why if you're not sharing it in this way? And so I love that you said all of that because it's just everything that I live by right now. And it's just frustrating sometimes when clients are like, well, what's my return on investment? And when will I have a million views? And it's like, that can't be your end goal. That is
This is
not
one
your
of the
end goal.
biggest. So this is an interesting point, Rachel. It's one of the biggest problems that we have as creators is that there's really not an initial investment. It's not like you're getting a return on ad spend like you would on dropping 10 grand on Facebook ads or something. Like, it's very easy to calculate what your ROAS is in something like that. And it's funny, I was actually speaking to a fellow podcast agency owner in January, and we were kind of talking about mountains. And basically what we said is, well, let's look at different business models. Let's figure out, like, how do we take our business from 6 figures to 7 figures, right? That's the problem I'm trying to solve for. Solid 6, happy there. How do I get to 7? And we were kind of saying like, well, what are the largest podcast agencies doing in annual revenue? Right? What's their gross? And we're like, okay, they're probably doing about 3 to 4 million a year, maybe 5 million, top percent of a percent. We're like, okay, well, how much are the top marketing agencies making annually? We're like, 500 million, maybe more, like huge discrepancy. And so I kind of had this moment where I was like, well, what problem am I solving for? If I'm helping business owners turn 30-minute Zoom videos into an entire digital media presence, well, what is it that they actually want? Do they just want to have their face everywhere? In most cases, a business owner wants to generate warm leads for their business. And so I kind of had that realization that, if I'm following my own advice, I need to solve the problem that my customer has. And I've just kind of decided that I need to continuously be finding ways to solve that problem. If they want new leads for their business, well, how do I do that? How do I generate new leads that are measurable without sacrificing the core competencies that my agency has? Okay. And I think that's where, at least for me, that's my plan to get to 7 figures, is by figuring out how to get a more immediate return on investment, because that's what they're looking at. And by getting my formulas and my numbers straight, I can say something. I can go to a client and say, hey, well, just so you know, I find that after for every 20 interviews you do, you land 1 client. Right now, it's just a matter of doing more interviews. You know what I mean? Or for every 10 emails that you send out, you're going to generate 5 warm prospects. Like, so we just need to send out more emails to the right people. So again, focusing on doing what you do very well, but always focusing on what's the problem that my customer has. Because if we're not solving for their problem, it's not going to work. We're just never going to excel. So
that's what I tell everybody with content too. It's be inspirational, aspirational, or you're solving a problem. Every time you're opening your mouth, it should be one of those 3 things in some way. And then post with purpose, right? Like, don't just keep putting like hearts and fire emojis. Like, engage with the content that you enjoy and actually leave a valuable content. Because a lot of times I find people will come to me after I leave a comment with substance, because they want to come see who I'm about, right? Like, who wrote this? And, how many times have we gone down rabbit holes just trying to like find somebody who gave us value, even if it isn't a comment on somebody else's video. So I love everything that you say, though. I think that you're so brilliant at how you give advice. You really are, because you're very honest. You don't like beat around the bush, but you also constantly are trying to solve problems for people. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you. I'll go just one level deeper, that getting a return on your creative investment is not just about creating. Another big part of it is engaging with other accounts. I've been playing with this really cool tool for LinkedIn. It's called EVAI. And what it does is it's engagement on steroids. There's a really popular way of engaging others, which is you follow big accounts. As soon as they post something, you leave a comment. So like Tony Robbins creates a post on LinkedIn, I leave a comment. Gary Vaynerchuk, comment, and so on and so forth. And so I've actually just hired a team member. I'm going to be training him in 15 minutes on how to do this. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be engaging at scale. We're going to be engaging on all these accounts using EVAI, which basically reads the entire post and then creates a thoughtful comment based on the parameters that you've set for the program, the training you've put together. And then, what happens is other people are reading their post. They read this is exactly what happens. People will read your comment on a post. They'll like it. They'll click on your bio. They'll go check you out. They're like, this person has a really clear bio. They seem interesting. Let me look at a couple of their posts. Okay, they look cool. Follow. And then that's a warm lead. That's someone who was cold and now they're warm. Why? Not necessarily because of the content I was creating, but because I was engaging with them. I was engaging in a place that they live. I have the content to back it up, to build a know, like, and trust. And I have my profile to do the selling. And then it's all into the DMs for the to turn them hot.
I love that. I'm going to look into that, because I think that's part of the strategy I've been using, but I didn't even realize there was an AI to help me do that. So I'm going to look into that. And I love that. All right, I'm going to let you go because I know you're crazy busy. Thank you so much for taking time for me. You always hold space for everybody that is on your team, and I absolutely love. Literally, you always solve a problem for me. Your videos are so invaluable. If you guys do want more information, it's marksavantmedia.com. He has a whole perfectly laid out funnel to get into contact with him. And then your YouTube, After Hours Entrepreneur, your podcast is incredible. Honestly,
Thank
like
you.
there's so much value there. And y'all start, I mean, he's got 400 some odd videos. If you want to know anything about podcasting and building a business, Mark's content is incredible and it's free. It's free. You
Yeah.
just give it away.
And
I
listen,
used
AI, to me, AI is the game changer of our generation right now. It's happening right now. People are going to look back in 20 years and be like, wow, I missed it. Just like websites and the internet, people look back and
Mhm.
say, I missed it. People are going to be saying that in a few years. So it's really important to me that we get people on board with this AI revolution because it's going to leave a lot of people behind. We don't want people left behind. We want people to stay up with it.
Mhm.
So I just deliver all my best stuff through my AI newsletter at aiupdate.ai. aiupdate.ai. When you sign up, I'll even give you a free chat GPT guide. It's 100 pages long, all my best stuff. And that's at aiupdate.ai.
I'll put all that in your description too because I'm learning about backlinks.
Oh, yeah.
You're the best. Thank you so much for taking the time. You're amazing. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Rachel. You look
Thank
great.
you,
Sound
Mark.
great. Love it.
We're getting there. We're getting there. Baby steps, buddy. Baby
Oh,
steps.
yeah.